Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones. Tom Selleck was actually cast and accepted the role of Indiana Jones before Harrison Ford. CBS refused to let him out of his Magnum PI contract, forcing him to back out just 3 weeks before filming. The cruel twist? A writer's strike delayed Magnum filming, meaning Selleck would have been available after all. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas tried everything to get CBS to release him, holding the offer open for over a month while negotiating. CBS wouldn't budge, and they had to move on. Ford has publicly thanked Selleck multiple times, saying, "Thank you, Tom, man. If you're listening, thank you again." Selleck still went to see Raiders in theaters on opening night, because he knew it would be great. The moment he saw Ford being chased by that boulder, he knew Harrison Ford was Indiana Jones. Tom Cruise as Tony Stark. Tom Cruise was in serious discussions to play Tony Stark in Iron Man before Robert Downey Jr. got the role. Cruise demanded too much creative control and wanted to remove the helmet for most of the movie. The studio refused, and Cruise walked away. Jon Favreau fought desperately for Robert Downey Jr., despite massive studio resistance over his troubled past. Downey's casting launched the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe and made $29 billion across 33 films. Cruise later admitted he didn't understand the vision at the time. Downey reportedly improvised most of his dialogue and created the definitive version of Tony Stark. Will Smith as Neo. Will Smith famously turned down The Matrix to star in Wild Wild West, later calling it the dumbest thing an actor ever did in the history of acting. Smith met with the Wachowskis, but didn't understand their vision for bullet time and philosophical themes. He recalled them saying, "Imagine if you could stop jumping in the middle of the jump, and people could see around you 360 while you're jumping." Smith admitted he probably would have ruined The Matrix anyway. If he'd been cast, the studio wouldn't have allowed 2 black male leads. So Morpheus would have gone to Val Kilmer instead of Lawrence Fishburne. Wild Wild West became a massive flop, while The Matrix made $467 million. Jake Gyllenhaal as Spider-Man. When Tobey Maguire injured his back, Jake Gyllenhaal was offered Spider-Man 2. Studio executives believed the actors looked so similar that audiences wouldn't notice the switch. Gyllenhaal screen-tested in the full Spider-Man suit and was ready to take over. The two actors were close friends, making the situation incredibly awkward. Universal Studios intervened to protect Maguire's value for Seabiscuit and got him back in the suit. Spider-Man 2 made $788 million and won an Oscar. Gyllenhaal finally joined the MCU 15 years later as the villain Mysterio in Spider-Man Far From Home. Matt Damon as Jake Sully. Matt Damon turned down James Cameron's offer to play Jake Sully in Avatar, including a 10% profit participation deal that would have earned him over $250 million. Damon was committed to finishing The Bourne Ultimatum and didn't want to leave his co-stars in the lurch. He later called it the most money an actor ever turned down. Avatar went on to become the highest-grossing film of all time. Sam Worthington, a relative unknown, got the role instead and became an international star overnight. Damon joked that his agent probably still wakes up screaming about this decision. Sean Connery as Gandalf. Sean Connery was offered $30 million plus 15% of box office earnings to play Gandalf, a deal that would have netted him around $447 million. Connery turned it down because he didn't understand the material, despite reading the books and scripts. This became one of the most expensive rejections in film history. Peter Jackson reportedly tried multiple times to convince Connery, but the former Bond actor remained unconvinced. Connery later said he still didn't understand what the films were about. After seeing them, the rejection haunted him so much that he later accepted League of Extraordinary Gentlemen without reading the script, which he also didn't understand. Matthew McConaughey as Jack Dawson. Matthew McConaughey was very close to landing Jack in Titanic and even impressed Kate Winslet during their screen test. When James Cameron asked him to try the scene with a different accent, McConaughey refused, saying, "No, that was pretty good, thanks." Cameron wanted to hear different options, but McConaughey walked out of the audition. His refusal to take direction cost him one of the biggest roles in cinema history. Leonardo DiCaprio had no such issues and went on to become a global superstar from the film. The movie made $2.2 billion and launched DiCaprio into the stratosphere. Al Pacino as Han Solo. Al Pacino revealed he was offered Han Solo but turned it down because he didn't understand the script. This was around the same time Pacino was doing serious dramatic work like The Godfather Part 2. George Lucas initially didn't want Harrison Ford due to concerns about using the same actor from American Graffiti. Ford ended up reading for the part by helping other actors audition, and Lucas realized he was perfect. Pacino turning down Star Wars became a running joke in Hollywood about actors not recognizing blockbuster potential when they see it. Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly. Eric Stoltz was cast and filmed several weeks of Back to the Future before being replaced by Michael J. Fox. Director Robert Zemeckis realized Stoltz's serious method acting approach was completely wrong for the comedic tone. Stoltz insisted on being called Marty even off camera, and reportedly shoved co-star Thomas F. Wilson with full force during takes, bruising his collarbones. Co-star Leah Thompson noted Stoltz saw drama where they needed comedy. When Zemeckis finally told the cast about the recasting, someone from the crowd shouted, "That's certainly not the bad news." The entire crew was relieved. Zemeckis called firing Stoltz the worst experience of his career, but the replacement added $4 million to the budget and saved the movie. By the way, if you guys like movie content like this, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks. Let's get back to it. John Travolta as Forrest Gump. John Travolta was Robert Zemeckis' first choice for Forrest Gump, but turned it down to star in Pulp Fiction instead. While Travolta's career was revitalized by Vincent Vega, he missed out on what became Tom Hanks' second consecutive Oscar-winning performance. Both actors ended up nominated against each other at the 1995 Academy Awards, with Hanks winning for the role Travolta rejected. The irony is that Pulp Fiction saved Travolta's dying career, while Forrest Gump would have made him even bigger. When Hanks finally got the script, he reportedly read it in an hour and immediately told his agent he had to do it. Annette Bening as Catwoman. Annette Bening was originally cast as Catwoman in Batman Returns, and even had full-body casting done for her costume. She became pregnant and had to drop out to focus on her growing family with Warren Beatty. Michelle Pfeiffer stepped in at the last minute with just weeks to prepare. Tim Burton had to completely redesign the costume and reshoot everything. Pfeiffer trained intensively to do her own stunts, and reportedly cracked her whip so many times in practice that she could snuff out a candle from several feet away. The role became career-defining for Pfeiffer, and is still considered the best Catwoman ever put to screen. Dougray Scott as Wolverine. Dougray Scott was cast as Wolverine, but couldn't escape his Mission Impossible 2 commitments when Tom Cruise insisted he stay to finish the film. Scott also suffered a motorcycle accident during filming, further complicating matters. Hugh Jackman was brought in just 3 weeks into production, with zero preparation. Jackman had never heard of the X-Men comics, and had to frantically research the character. He went on to play Wolverine for 24 years, across 9 films, becoming the longest-running superhero actor ever. Scott later admitted watching Jackman's success was painful, calling it the role that got away. Mel Gibson as Maximus. Mel Gibson was Ridley Scott's first choice for Maximus in Gladiator, but had to turn it down due to scheduling conflicts with The Patriot. Gibson was also in his mid-40s and concerned about the physical demands. Russell Crowe delivered an Oscar-winning performance that defined his career and made him a global superstar. Gibson later reflected, "Well, I wish I'd done that." DreamWorks wanted Gibson so badly, they offered to delay the entire production, but Gibson's Patriot commitment was already locked in. The Patriot made $215 million, while Gladiator made $460 million and won Best Picture. Gibson admitted it was one of his biggest career regrets. Tom Hanks as Jerry Maguire. Tom Hanks was writer-director Cameron Crowe's first choice for Jerry Maguire, but scheduling conflicts with directing That Thing You Do meant the role went to Tom Cruise instead. Crowe wrote the character specifically thinking of Hanks and his everyman quality. Tom Cruise took the role and created one of the most quotable performances in cinema history. Show Me the Money became a cultural phenomenon, and Cruise earned an Oscar nomination. Hanks's film That Thing You Do made $25 million, while Jerry Maguire made $273 million. Both actors have never publicly discussed the casting switch. Leonardo DiCaprio as Patrick Bateman. Leonardo DiCaprio was offered $20 million to play Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. Director Mary Harron was replaced by Oliver Stone, and DiCaprio had creative differences with Stone's vision for the character. DiCaprio dropped out to do The Beach instead, which bombed critically and commercially. Christian Bale took a massive pay cut from $5 million to just $50,000 to stay with the project when Harron returned as director. Bale's commitment paid off, with one of the most iconic performances of the 2000s. The Beach made $144 million, while American Psycho became a massive cult classic. Josh Hartnett as Batman. Josh Hartnett was one of the main contenders for Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins, but turned it down because he was wary of being typecast. Hartnett rejected multiple superhero roles in the early 2000s, including Superman and Spider-Man. He wanted time away from Hollywood and turned down what would become the most iconic superhero franchise of the 2000s. Christian Bale took the role, and the Dark Knight trilogy made over $2.4 billion worldwide. Hartnett later admitted it was a massive mistake that derailed his A-list status. His career never recovered to the same heights. Frank Sinatra as John McClane. Frank Sinatra was offered Die Hard as a contractual formality because he'd starred in an earlier adaptation of the source material. The 72-year-old singer naturally declined what would become the defining action franchise of the late 80s. Bruce Willis was considered a risky choice at the time, since he was only known for the comedy series Moonlighting. The studio wanted an established action star. Willis proved everyone wrong, and Die Hard made $140 million. Sinatra's agent probably breathed a sigh of relief that his client didn't attempt helicopter stunts and running across broken glass barefoot at age 72. Sylvester Stallone as Axel Foley. The original Beverly Hills Cop script was written as a straight action vehicle for Sylvester Stallone. Stallone demanded extensive rewrites to remove all the comedy and add more explosions. When the studio refused, he walked away. They brought in Eddie Murphy and completely rewrote it as a comedy showcase for his improvisational talents. Murphy ad-libbed most of his lines and created one of the most iconic characters of the 80s. Beverly Hills Cop made $316 million and launched Murphy into superstardom. Stallone's action version would have been just another Rambo clone that nobody remembers. Jim Carrey as Buddy the Elf. Jim Carrey was attached to play Buddy the Elf for years while the project sat in development hell. By the time the film got greenlit years later, Carrey had moved on and aged out of the role. Will Ferrell stepped in and made the character his own with wide-eyed innocence. The film made $220 million and became a Christmas classic. Ferrell has turned down massive offers for a sequel because he doesn't want to ruin the original. Carrey's manic, rubber-faced energy would have been too over-the-top for the sweet story, and he never got another shot at a wholesome holiday character like this. Charlie Hunnam as Christian Grey. Charlie Hunnam was cast as Christian Grey in 50 Shades of Grey, but dropped out citing a nervous breakdown from the overwhelming pressure. He had just 48 hours between wrapping Sons of Anarchy and starting 50 Shades. The intense fan backlash and scrutiny before filming even started crushed him. Fans were furious with the casting and sent death threats. Jamie Dornan stepped in and faced the same toxic reaction from book fans. The film made $569 million, despite brutal reviews. Hunnam later said, "Walking away was the best decision he ever made, even though it cost him millions." Reba McEntire as Molly Brown. Country music star Reba McEntire turned down Molly Brown in Titanic because of tour scheduling conflicts. James Cameron specifically wanted her natural Western authenticity and charisma. Kathy Bates stepped in and created a memorable performance that earned praise. Titanic became the highest-grossing film of all time and made $2.2 billion. McEntire was on a massive country music tour at the time and couldn't commit to the filming schedule. She later said she has no regrets because her tour was incredibly successful, but admits it would have been cool to be in the biggest movie ever made. Claire Danes as Rose. Claire Danes turned down Rose in Titanic at just 17 years old. She felt too young for the intense romantic scenes and didn't want to be typecast opposite Leonardo DiCaprio again after Romeo and Juliet. Kate Winslet fought aggressively for the role, sending James Cameron daily notes and calling him constantly. Winslet even sent Cameron a rose with a card saying, "From your Rose." Her persistence paid off, with the role that made her a global superstar. Titanic made $2.2 billion, and Winslet earned her second Oscar nomination. Danes went on to have a successful TV career, but never reached Winslet's film stardom. Brad Pitt in The Matrix. Brad Pitt passed on The Matrix because he was committed to Fight Club at the same time. He later joked they'd need 2 nights to cover all the great movies he's turned down. The Wachowskis desperately wanted a major star to anchor their risky, philosophical action film. Pitt chose Fight Club and created another iconic character that defined a generation. Both films became massive cult classics released in 1999. The Matrix made $467 million, while Fight Club initially flopped, but became one of the most influential films of the decade. Pitt has zero regrets about the decision. Tom Selleck as Dr. Richard Kimball. Before Harrison Ford was cast, Tom Selleck was seriously considered for The Fugitive. This would have been Selleck's third near miss with a Harrison Ford role after Indiana Jones. The role required sustained intensity and raw desperation that Ford delivered perfectly. Ford's performance earned him an Oscar nomination and revitalized his entire career. The film made $368 million and won Tommy Lee Jones an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Selleck was locked into Magnum P.I. and various TV commitments at the time. After missing Indiana Jones in this, Selleck joked that Harrison Ford should send him a fruit basket every year.
If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button.
Thanks for watching, and see you next time.